From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Kayode Okekiolu.
The attackers and 2 soldiers reportedly killed during exchange of gunfire. Nigerian Navy recovers vessel suspected of being engaged in illegal crude export. Sets ablaze boat laden with drums of premium motor spirit in Cross River State. Says actions in accordance with the standard. Election debate. He's also urging the electorates to use their voting power to vote against candidates that fail to make themselves available for the debate. Addressing journalists in the nation's capital, Abuja, Professor Tomi explains that election debate provides the electorates an opportunity to assess the plans and capacity of a candidate before elections.
The fortunes of South Korea were turned around because the Electoral Commission in South Korea was so despondent about the quality of their politics that they decided that the thing that should matter the most for elections are debates between candidates. So he became entrenched in the conventions of South Korean politics. Before anybody goes to an election, they would have had a series of debates. That's on the streets, in town halls, on TV, anywhere. But debates came to define South Korean elections. Once debates came to define the elections, money bags and all kinds of criminals and charlatans ran away. And the electoral process became one that sustained an enormously developing country. And so any politician that refuses to make this fundamental contribution to the democratic process should be considered unfit, unable, and unwilling to participate in the democratic process. If INEC does not have the courage to disqualify such a candidate, then the people must disqualify that candidate.
Well, speaking of INEC, the Independent National Electoral Commission is distancing itself from a press release purported to have been issued by the electoral umpire, claiming it has commenced investigation into a case of criminal forfeiture against the APC presidential candidate, Chief Bola Tinubu. The purported press release, which has been trending online, claimed INEC is liaising with a court in the United States to determine possible violation of guidelines or the Electoral Act 2022. But in a statement released today, the Commission's National Commissioner, Mr. Festus Okoye, says INEC is not pursuing the purported course of action, while asking the public to ignore the said press release, which he says did not emanate from INEC. Describing it as the handiwork of mischief makers, the Commission reiterates that press releases from it are uploaded from or to its official website and online platforms. And as the country counts down to the 2023 elections, the Nigerian Guild of Editors continues to advocate issue-based campaigns rather than divisive rhetorics capable of dividing the country. Well, on day 2 of the 18th edition of the All Nigeria Editors Conference in Owerri, the Imo State capital, the editors took on the special guest of honor and Governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodimma, on issues of governance in a state that has faced its fair share of security challenges.
This is the executive session, and
it's the 18th edition of the All Nigerian Editors Conference holding in Owerri, the Imo State capital. Editors from all parts of the country who are gathered here have been brainstorming on the theme of the conference, which is the 2023 political landscape, credible elections, and the role of editors. The event offers the guest of honor and Governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodimma, the platform to present his scorecard of 3 years to the Nigerian Guild of Editors.
While still serving as a senator, I noticed that our children were always risking their lives on the streets of Owerri with jerry cans in search of potable water. On inquiry, I was told that public water supply to Owerri ceased about 15 years ago. To say that I was shocked was an understatement. So soon after I assumed office, I mobilized contractors to fix the Owerri water works known as the Otamere Water Scheme. Today, to the glory of God, the public taps are back to Owerri.
I want to talk about the issue of empowerment.
After his presentation, the event breaks into a question and answer session, and the governor responds to some of the questions asked by some of the editors.
When you came in, that you discovered that the payroll was over-bloated, and some people were going away with about 2 billion naira. So if somebody could just walk away with 2 billion naira every month. So I want to ask you whether something was done about that.
What I said in my speech, that there were consultants whose duty was to just prepare vouchers and the payment, salary payment schedules at a cost of 500 million a month, in collusion with some insiders. And when I came, I stopped it. So it means, stopping it means that automatically the 500 million has been saved.
With the 2023 elections months away, the takeaway from this conference is that deliberations here will present the editors with a new energy to approach the task ahead, especially in an election year.
Also, security matters. The hometown of the Anambra State Governor, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, came under attack in the early hours of today as a gang of armed men attacked the army checkpoint at Afozo Junction, Isofia, through an entrance from Umona community. The State Police Command in a statement says 5 of the attackers were killed after security forces engaged them in a gun duel, while others escaped with bullet wounds in a dark blue Lexus without plate numbers, while a Toyota car with which the attackers launched the operation was also recovered. However, 2 soldiers were said to have been killed by the gunmen. Meanwhile, the government of Anambra State has given the assurance that it will do everything to ensure the safety of residents, especially during the Yuletide. And in what appears to be a huge step forward in the fight against organized crude oil theft in the country, the Nigerian Navy has recovered a vessel suspected of being engaged in illegal crude export. Measuring 336 meters in length and 60 meters in width, the very large crude carrier, known as MT Heroic Idun, is the size of 3 standard football fields. It was accosted on August 8th within the Akpo offshore oil field, where it was allegedly attempting to illegally lift crude oil. Despite several attempts to arrest, it somehow escaped into the open ocean, where she was intercepted and seized by the authorities of Equatorial Guinea. And in Cross River State, the Nigerian Navy has set ablaze a wooden boat said to be laden with premium motor spirits, also known as petrol, on the Calabar waterways. Speaking with journalists in Calabar, the Cross River State capital, the base operation officer of NNS Victory, Lieutenant Commander Isaac Ayogu, explained that the suspects were intercepted en route Agbani oil terminal on the high sea. He said the burning is in accordance with standard procedure as directed by the Chief of Defense Staff.
The exercise we conducted this evening is in accordance with the standard operating procedure of the Nigerian Navy, and as directed by the Chief of Defense Staff, that any item arrested that is associated with crude oil theft and illegal oil bunkering should be destroyed, and suspects, if any, handed over to the appropriate prosecuting agency. We intercepted a wooden boat carrying 6 suspects and about 273 drums of PMS along Agbani oil terminal.
And now to the power sector, where the challenge of poor electricity supply in the country has been attributed partly to the low wheeling capacity of a transmission company of Nigeria, TCN, which currently stands at 7,500 megawatts. And as part of efforts to address that weakness, the federal government says it will be raising the TCN wheeling capacity by 1,000 megawatts before the end of the year. The Minister of Power, Mr. Abubakar Aliyu, made this known during an inspection of some power substations around the Federal Capital Territory.
This is one of the 6 projects under the Abuja Ring Project, executed by the Transmission Company of Nigeria. The project is funded with a loan of $170 million from the French Development Agency. The Minister of Power, Mr. Abubakar Aliyu, is inspecting the projects as the government hopes to commission them before the end of the year.
The government of President Muhammadu Buhari, in its quest to raise the operational capacity of the NESI, the Nigerian Electricity Supply Industry, this is one of the projects that is being done in order to achieve that. So it's called Ring Project, Abuja Ring Project. The Dawaki on the Gwarimpa on is over 90% completion, and so are others. As you can see here, what is the percentage completion of this place?
96.
This one is 96%.
The projects are located in Dawaki in Buari Area Council, Gwarimpa, Apo, Lugbe, and Wumba in Abuja Metropolitan Area Council, and Kuje Town in Kuje Area Council. Another source of concern is the disruption of the 700 megawatt Zungeru power generation project by bandits. However, the minister has some good news.
Zungeru will have completed Zungeru since January, around January. But you know what happened at Zungeru, where the insecurity there stalled the progress of the project. But now everything is resolved. The military and the other security agencies have brought in men to assist in securing that area.
President Muhammadu Buhari had pledged to increase the capacity of the Nigerian electricity supply industry. And the minister is appealing to Nigerians to be patient with the government as they work to actualize this quest.
In part 2, after the break, medical doctors called for more funding to treat patients from across the country with brain and spine conditions under the free surgery program of the University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital. Now that's in a moment. Stay with us. as the Nigerian Navy has recovered a vessel suspected of being engaged in the illegal crude export. That which you see is the size of 3 standard football fields, measuring 336 meters in length and 60 meters in width, known as MT Heroic Idom. And now to the health sector. Every year, patients in their hundreds from across the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria with prevailing brain and spine conditions indicate interest in the free brain and spine surgery program of the University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital in partnership with foreign health professionals in neuromedicine. And this is an encouraging development in light of medical tourism, which has become a phenomenon in Nigeria owing to inadequate medical facilities. However, the organizers are calling for more funding from government and the private sector to reach more Nigerians with these health challenges.
This is Ebuka Undu, a 10-year-old boy who had a tumor in the back of his brain. His neural disorder was of a nature that didn't enable him to walk or even move his hand freely. The post-operation pain is nothing compared to the joy of being alive and healthy after years of pain. Ebuka is not the only beneficiary of this intervention. Nnamdi Anayo is another patient. He believes little or nothing is known about the type of neural disorders that almost took his life.
From low motion to short distance motion, from short distance motion to almost getting shut down. So, and I thank God today I'm free.
According to hospital statistics, every year patients in their hundreds travel from different parts of the country to be part of the free mission, with just a few being attended to due to manpower constraints, facilities, amongst others.
We are calling on the federal government to assist the UNTH Enugu by providing funds. In fact, the federal government can write off the service charges of these surgeries for these patients, indigent patients. We're also calling on public-spirited individuals in this country to key into this project, just like some people have identified with the cardiac project.
As the foreign team prefers solutions, the hospital management says the collaboration with their partners at the University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital, Enugu, is gaining attention from the list of those who require medical care.
This mission is focused on spine surgery and skull-based brain surgery, which is our area of expertise. And it's really, I can't stress enough that it's really a great collaboration with, and I'm very grateful to be in Nigeria. It's my second time.
They came with a lot of equipment, so that when they go, we also continue whatever their own perspective of the surgery, whatever surgery they must have carried out. So it's like an exchange program, so that exchange of ideas, trying to sharpen and our own skills and improve on the services that we offer our people.
Neurological disorder is any disorder of the nervous system. Structural, biochemical, or electrical abnormalities in the brain, spinal cord, or the nerves can result in a range of symptoms. Doctors here want government and other Nigerians to step in and alleviate the sufferings of those who can't afford neuromedical services.
And now outside Nigeria to the COP27 conference holding in Egypt, where there's been sweltering heat at the venue. Perhaps a reminder to negotiators that real lives and livelihoods hang in the balance as some nations continue to delay and distract from their climate obligations. During the first week of the conference, vulnerable nations have stood united in their demand for funding for loss and damage, the unavoidable impacts of climate crisis that threaten to destabilize entire communities through floods, cyclones, superstorms, and rising seas. Our correspondent Ayola Kasim reports from Egypt.
Protesters once again are out at the site of the conference in Sharm el-Sheikh. A daily event here. This is the biggest protest yet during this year's talks, and all they want is climate justice. If we don't get it, shut it down! Most demonstrations held at the conference have taken place in the summit's blue zone, which falls under the responsibility of the United Nations. The Egyptian government has not permitted any protest outside the area.
We need to keep fighting to make sure that inside these negotiations, actually the voice of the most affected people by the climate crisis are heard, are listened, and the actions are taken and agreed here. So I think what is interesting also of this kind of coalition and this kind of march is actually that we do link what's happening in the text of negotiations with the concrete challenges and fights of people every day all around the world.
Climate catastrophes from historic floods in Nigeria and Pakistan to the worst drought in decades across the Horn of Africa, which affects millions of people, have been constant talking points here. But at the end of the first week, the aim of coming together for implementation has been elusive.
This COP was meant to help deliver tangible progress on adaptation, and particularly around defining the global goal on adaptation. It was meant to deliver the decision that was agreed in Glasgow last year around doubling adaptation finance. And it was meant to agree a loss and damage facility that offers assurance, particularly to the communities on the front lines that are most impacted by climate change. And on each of these issues, developed world are shirking their responsibility and are failing to step up and actually honor their promises, particularly on adaptation, on loss and damage, and on climate finance.
Nigeria is in the group of 77 and China, the largest organization of developing countries in the UN. The countries are already having informal and formal meetings in order to articulate their position.
Over the next 1 week, it's where we'll be looking at the grammar issues. Should we put shall, should we put should? But essentially, the developing countries will be insisting on shall when it comes to financial support, from the developed countries, because they need to do that. They need to support Africa in fighting climate change.
The language of the text is important, as this will indicate there is a full commitment to do what the developed countries have been promising, or shows that the gathering here in Sharm el-Sheikh will end up being another talk without action. Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
And back home, the federal government says about 785 billion naira has been disbursed to more than 10 million micro, small and medium enterprises in 3 years. This is according to the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Mr. Adeniyi Adebayo, at the 14th summit of the ministry in Bauchi State. He also says a review of the trade policy is being finalized in order to leverage on the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, in addition to other policies and plans to attract and retain investment in the country.
The first Nigerian assembled electric car and various MSME products are on display at the 14th annual summit of the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment in Bauchi State. The meeting is geared towards strengthening the sector and promoting development in the country. The ministry is convinced that it has delivered its mandate, especially in 3 federal government priority areas of building a thriving and sustainable economy, enlarging agricultural output for food security, as well as exports, and expanding business growth, entrepreneurship and industrialization.
The federal government has successfully disbursed about 785 billion naira through the Bank of Industry to over 10 million MSMEs from July 2019 to July 2022. Over $3 billion has been invested in the 7 sugar backward integration program projects and 8 independent projects. In the automotive sector, over $1 billion of investment has been recorded, and we are ready to proceed to the next phase for the automotive industry.
I also want to congratulate the government and people of Bauchi State for the commissioning this morning of the first Trade Facilitation Center in Nigeria. I think we need to applaud this. I'm really proud.
The governor of Bauchi State wants more collaboration with the ministry as he guarantees an enabling environment for investors.
Our administration has designed and is implementing a new industrial policy which we deliberately put in place to hasten our industrialization drive. To this end, besides the ongoing privatization of state-owned enterprises Plan is underway to establish a world-class industrial park with a view to attract business investments.
As the country anticipates gains from the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, the ministry is also concerned about resolving the huge unemployment challenges among youths. Hajara Aliyu, Channels Television News.
Well, Willie Bong is here with more business stories on the news at 10.
Thanks, Kayode. Nigeria's foreign reserve has maintained its decline for the 10th straight week, falling by $141.14 million week on week to $37.22 billion as of November the 10th. And that's according to the latest data from the Central Bank of Nigeria. The country's forex reserve, which is mostly funded via a combination of the government's share of crude oil exports, foreign loans or grants, and capital importation, has been on a downtrend due to the continuous intervention by the CBN in the official market to maintain the naira stability. Forex market trading activity at the FMDQ exchange was mostly positive this week, as the total turnover of transactions carried out at the FX spot, forward and futures market rose by 66.46% week on week to $787.98 million. Now, look at a breakdown of the trading results shows that as of November the 11th, total value of transactions at the FX spot market, that's the I&E window, climbed by 69.29% to $712.17 million, while transactions at the FX derivatives market rose by 43.82% to more than $75 million. However, the naira's value fell further by 0.17% to 443 naira 87 kobo against the dollar, the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange Fixing Window, that's the NAFEX, when compared to last week's close of 443 naira 13 kobo. Now, members of the Agricultural Commodities Association Forum are calling for the federal government's intervention to address issues on food security. Speaking at a news conference in Abuja, the chairman of the forum, Sadiq Daware, explains that while insecurity and the recent flooding in some states have affected farmers, there's a need for the government to intervene as prices of food commodities continue to rise. Members of the association are, however, calling on the government to direct the central bank to provide funds for farmers for the 2022-2023 farming season, provide support for farmers who have been affected by the flood disasters, as well as increase its intervention through the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative. Now, activities in the domestic bourse took a negative turn this week as the loss recorded on the second trading day proved sufficient in wiping off the cumulative 1.2% gain as of Friday. Precisely, the all-share index declined by 0.68% to 43,968.75 points. And this is driven by sell-offs in Guinness, Flour Mills, Nigerian Breweries, MTN Nigeria, and Dangote Cement. Similarly, activity levels were weaker than the previous week as trading volume and value declined by 21.9% and 24.5% week on week. Elsewhere, we saw the performances across sectors were broadly negative as most key indexes recorded losses except for the banking index, which posted a 0.17% gain. Unity Bank topped the gainers chart for the week, while Prestige Assurance led the decliners. Now, the trio of Access Holdings, Sterling Bank, and Transnational Corporation contributed 52.44% and 23.57% to the total volume and value traded in the week. Similarly, at the unlisted securities market, the NASD OTC Securities Exchange Index closed the second week in November negative. The NASD Securities Index fell by 0.77% as the exchange lost 9.05 billion naira in value. However, volume and value rose sharply. Volume traded stood at 234.89 million units, while value traded for the week rose to 139.1 million naira. There were no advances for the week. However, Friesland Campina Wamco Nigeria made significant losses, leading to other sore losers. Meanwhile, Lighthouse Financial Services PLC and Central Securities Clearing System were among top 5 stocks traded by volume for the week. Now we'll go outside our shores to see bankrupt digital assets exchange, FTX, is engulfed in further chaos today when the company said it had detected unauthorized transactions of about $662 million in tokens in the past 24 hours. The latest twist in one of the darkest periods for the crypto industry. FTX filed for bankruptcy on Friday, one of the highest profile crypto blowups, after traders rushed to withdraw $6 billion from the platform in just 72 hours as rival exchange Binance abandoned a proposed rescue deal. The turmoil at FTX has seen at least $1 billion of customer funds vanish from the platform. The collapse shocked investors and prompted fresh calls to regulate the crypto asset sector, which has seen losses stack up so far this year as cryptocurrency prices collapsed. And that's it on Business News. It's back to Kayode for the rest of the news at 10.
Well, thank you, Will. And now to an update on the floods, which may be receding in Bayelsa State, thereby raising hopes of gradual resettlement of those displaced in the disaster. But then more needs to be done to alleviate their suffering, especially regarding the supply of petroleum products in the oil-producing state. And in response to this, the Bayelsa State government has purchased 410,000 liters of petrol for distribution to petroleum marketers in the state so motorists can purchase the product. The state has also received more palliatives from the federal government.
Food and non-food items from the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, being offloaded in Yenagoa, the Bayelsa State capital. This official of the agency is on the ground to ensure that the items are intact. Thereafter, the team from NEMA and that from the Bayelsa State government gather in this hall to rub minds on how the items will be distributed to the victims of the recent flood in Bayelsa State.
105 metric tons of maize. That is about 2,100 bags of 5 kilogram bags of maize, and then 88.7 metric tons of sorghum. That is 1,774 bags, the 50 kilogram size. And then 98.7 metric tons of gari, that is 3,948 bags in the category of 25 kilograms.
Yes, we accept your presentation, your food items, your non-food items. But I'm hoping that this marks the beginning of a relationship rather than the end of it. So on behalf of the governor, the government, the people, we say a very big thank you. And it would be wonderful if we could continue in a relationship like this.
Apart from the food items, the state government also took delivery of 410,000 liters of petrol. Officials say the commodity will be distributed to fuel stations across the state to enable residents purchase with ease.
We are distributing, we are doing that to some filling stations in Yenagoa. Then we are also considering the Sagwama axis, the Kayama axis, the Ogbian axis, and even down Yenagoa, so that people that are even moving through the creeks, that will be made available.
Nobody's going to flout that decision of 188 naira per liter. And we, even within us, we are going to monitor the system to ensure we sell at this 188 per liter.
Residents of the state believe that the food items and the PMS will go a long way in cushioning the effects of the flood on them.
Also education now, the Adolescent Girls Initiative for Learning and Empowerment, a World Bank-assisted project in collaboration with the Kaduna State government, is training secondary school science students on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics and robotics. Well, the training, which entails practical teaching and learning, is aligned with the global direction in education in science and technology, particularly with the challenges posed by climate change and high energy prices.
Globally, there is a drive to improve access to science, engineering, technology and mathematics due to the fast and evolving influence technology plays in people's everyday lives. Sadly, access to science education is more limited in the northern part of the country due to human factors. In an effort to correct the trend, the Adolescent Girls Initiative for Learning and Empowerment, AGILE, a World Bank-assisted project, in collaboration with the Kaduna State government, is supporting female secondary school students in the state within this space, with a focus on robotics and design as a key tool for expressing the vocational abilities within the growing technological and industrial economy. With the implementation partner, Kabara Community Development Initiative, about 130 female students and 70 teachers from selected science secondary schools across Kaduna are being trained under the program. Agile's approach to STEM education is a mixture of science, technology, engineering, using numbers, because numbers can tell a story that is very exciting.
We're trying to help leapfrog and to support learning in science, technology, engineering, maths and design to help young people assimilate all the necessary skill sets they need to advance in the world that we are today.
By allowing the students and even the teachers to learn STEM education using robots and designs, the organizers believe that it will trigger their critical thinking skills.
The idea here is to help support their learning in the schools and to improve their energy access to themselves.
The program targets girls who, by virtue of their social standing, do not have any opportunity or means to explore STEM education.
I've learned how to also use the modernized building block to make car using solar energy, empowering it to move.
ATET is here to help me achieve my knowledge and to tell me that I have the power and the confidence to stand in front of everyone to speak.
Implementing STEM education in delivering our content to the children. And also regarding the robotics, we are exposed to some certain things regarding robotics and artificial intelligence.
STEM careers are exciting, and going forward, it's expected the skills acquired will consequently shape the minds of these girls, especially in the areas of science and technology education.
Way to go, girls. Well, elsewhere, the Nigeria Data Protection Bureau says it is investigating cases of alleged violations in the digital space. The National Commissioner of the Bureau, Mr. Olatunji Vincent, at a news conference in Abuja, explains that the investigations will include alleged data breaches in the telecommunications and banking sectors. He adds that in an effort to ensure data privacy and foster the safe conduct of transactions involving the exchange of data, the Bureau has initiated a bill on data privacy and protection.
Ideally, if you are offering any financial service, it should be licensed by the CBN, because a lot of them are not licensed by CBN. Two is the issue of technology. What kind of technology are they using? In this case, the software, to be able to steal people's contact, which is really key. Three is the issue of privacy. The third parties, they don't enter into any contract with you. So by even using by processing their information, their data, it's a data breach already. So we have a national committee, and we're working with FCCP, that is the Federal Consumers Protection Commission, and CBN, ICPC, NCC, NITDA, EFCC, and the police. We signed an MOU with them on to properly deepen investigation into such cases and look at the more holistic way of approaching this issue, because it has become a major issue in Nigeria, because they target a vulnerable group that they've been 25,000, 30,000, 50,000. And if it defaults, maybe within 1 or 2 weeks, they start publish a lot of things about it.
And in its bid to achieve competitiveness and improve foreign exchange earnings through science and technology, the federal government has begun the groundwork for the implementation of Presidential Executive Order 5. Well, this informed a meeting of Northwestern stakeholders in Kano State, as the need to establish technology and innovation centers has been identified as central to the success of the order. The Executive Order 5, signed by President Buhari in 2018, amongst other things, seeks the promotion of Nigerian content in contract, science, engineering, and technology. Our correspondent Abubakar Saliu reports.
Participants of both federal and Kano State Ministries of Science and Technology are gathered here in this hall. The aim is for stakeholders to dialogue on the establishment and implementation of technology and innovation centers for global competitiveness and productivity, as enshrined in the Presidential Executive Order 5, 2018.
At that meeting, it was stressed.
In his remarks, the Minister of Science and Technology, who highlights some of the visions of the 2022 Science, Technology and Innovation Policy of the federal government, affirms that if implemented, it will guarantee high standard of living for Nigerians by 2030.
The objective of the technology and the innovation centers will include, amongst others, to find best ways to ensure that products and services in our dear country, Nigeria, are made complete with the best, and to be able to compete with the very best practices globally.
Kano Commissioner for Science and Technology applauds the initiative and gives an assurance on the state's readiness to partner the federal government for successful implementation of the policy.
The Presidential Executive Order number 5 is a welcome development, and I'm glad to inform you that the Kano State government, under the administration of His Excellency Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, is fully ready to do collaborations with any member, any state, any nation on the promotion of Executive Order number 5.
Participants at the dialogue, which include innovators, contractors and researchers, say they are optimistic that the policy will provide the enabling environment for wealth and job creation, as well as prosperity for Nigeria.
And now for the latest in the world of sports, here's Ayatunde Balogun.
Many thanks, Kaide. Welcome to Sports News. Super Eagles striker Victor Osimhen has continued his scoring form in the Italian Serie A as he netted the opening goal in Napoli's 3-2 win over Udinese. Osimhen put Napoli in front on 15 minutes, his 9th league goal of the season, before further strikes from Pietro Zielinski and Eljif Elmas, which gave the Naples side a 3-0 lead before the 60th minute mark. However, 2 late goals from Udinese ensured a nervy finish at the Diego Armando Maradona Stadium, but Napoli held on for all 3 points to remain unbeaten. For Osimhen, he has now scored 9 goals in 11 games in the Serie A, making him the top scorer in the Italian top flight. Australia has pulled out of a men's basketball World Cup qualifier in Iran next week following a risk assessment amid fears over player safety. Well, Australia were due to play in Tehran on Tuesday, but opted to stay away after securing their spot at next year's World Cup with a dominant 97-50 thrashing of Kazakhstan. Well, the Australian government has warned that protests have continued around the country and there's been an increase in the number of foreign nationals arrested. Well, the tournament next year is co-hosted by the Philippines, Japan and Indonesia.
Game Australia. Australia leads 3-2.
Well, to the NBA, Nigerian center Charles Bassey had a career-high 14 rebounds as the San Antonio Spurs ended their 5-game losing streak by topping the Milwaukee Bucks 111 to 93 points. Well, Bassey, who was born in Lagos, also matched a career-high with 4 blocks to go along with 5 points in 18 minutes. And San Antonio signed the 22-year-old after the Philadelphia 76ers waived him on October the 13th.
This is a perfect spot, this is a young team, I'm still learning everything out there. I mean, I wish I started, pre-season training camp with them, but I mean, everything is going smoothly. I'm just so locked in with my team, like every day, I'm learning new plays, getting with the coaches, watching film, just doing what I can to just help this team just win and just go out there and play hard as I can every night. I mean, yeah, that's what I do, man, I don't know, I'm a really good defender, I just try to just go out there and just, help the team, defensively, because that's one of my best part of my games, and my offensive game is still coming in, just knowing what these guys are doing, and I just fill in spots. But yeah, when my defensive game, one of the best part of my game, and I'm going to make a living doing that.
Well, in the English Premier League, Arsenal FC will go into the World Cup break with 5 points clear of Manchester City after contrasting results for both teams. Well, the Gunners were already guaranteed to be top of the log at Christmas for the first time since the 2007-2008 season after Manchester City's stunning loss to Brentford, which ended 2-1. And Martin Odegaard ensured the lead will be bigger by scoring twice in a 2-0 win over Wolverhampton Wanderers. In other games, Newcastle edged Chelsea by a goal to nil to go third. Bournemouth thrashed Everton 3-0. Liverpool beat Southampton 3-1. Nottingham Forest edged Crystal Palace by a goal to nil. Tottenham also peeped Leeds United 4-3, while West Ham lost 2-0 at home to Leicester City. Well, Israel Adesanya will defend his UFC middleweight title against Alex Pereira in the main event of UFC 281 on November the 12th in New York in the early hours of Sunday morning. That's Nigerian time. Well, Adesanya's 7th consecutive title defense will be another opportunity to get the better of Pereira after being beaten twice by the Brazilian in their kickboxing days. Well, ahead of the crucial fight at Madison Square Garden, the last stylebender, as he's fondly called, says the pressure is on Pereira to win, but he nonetheless is confident of retaining his gold. And Novak Djokovic, Rafa Nadal and Daniil Medvedev have expressed their expectations ahead of the ATP finals in Turin. Well, the tournament sees the top 8 ranked ATP players battle it out between themselves for the honor. Djokovic has been drawn alongside Stefanos Tsitsipas, Daniil Medvedev and Andrei Rublev in the green group. Well, the red group consists of Rafa Nadal, Casper Ruud, Felix Auger-Aliassime and Taylor Fritz. And that's a wrap on Sports News. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. Back to you, Kyle.
And outside the shores of a country in South Africa where former President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo has been speaking on the recent peace deal reached to end the Ethiopia-Tigray conflict. But Chief Obasanjo, who addressed the 6th Pan-African Parliament, which just ended in Midrand, South Africa, expressed hope that the peace agreement would lead to the restoration of normalcy in the troubled East African country. Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, reports.
After 2 weeks of deliberations, the session closed with an emptier house when compared with the opening ceremony. The current Parliament President, Chief Fortune Charumbira of Zimbabwe, commended the members of Parliament.
We are happy this Parliament, I think, is moving. And as individuals and collectively, wherever we are, let's make sure that we are perceived as a new Parliament.
So, recommendation on labor migration in Africa. The Pan-African Parliament, considering Article 17 of the Constitutive Act of the African Union on the establishment of the Pan-African Parliament to ensure the full participation of African peoples.
On Tuesday, the 8th, Nigeria's former president, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, addressed the Parliament.
I thought I should use the opportunity to do 3 or 4 things with them. One, to put
put it that way, to remind them of their duties, their responsibility, the objectives, why they came into existence. Then I also challenge them on the issue of integration in Africa, particularly economic integration. And 3, to brief them on what had taken place in the assignment that I was given 15 months ago.
And that assignment is continuing in Kenya, where consolidation work on the Tigray peace agreement signed in South Africa on the 2nd of November is being done. Hopefully, the peace will hold this time to end the devastating 2-year-old war.
I would say from what we have got now, I think we can say the signs are clear, that, or are getting clearer, put it that way, that it will hold. First, it wasn't easy to agree to what they have agreed to. But the number of things took place to agree to what they have agreed to. One, what is the assurance for security for all concerned? All concerned. That's number one. Number two, now, how do you manage the ego? So it is no victor, no vanquished. Everybody is a winner. These are some of the things that have to be handled dexterously for us to get an agreement that will be acceptable and that will last.
With the visit and address by His Excellency former President Olusegun Obasanjo, we have hope that I think we may now be getting it right on the continent, whereby the issue of Africa should use its own solutions rather than always look to people from outside Africa. That's why these conflicts have not ended at all.
To take this further, the president of the Pan-African Parliament announced that a place at the Parliament building will be reserved for past African leaders to be more involved in Parliament work and in sharing their wealth of experience in government. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
Well, the mood in Ukraine is cheerful as thousands gather to celebrate Russia's retreat from Kherson, when news of this significant Ukrainian victory is pulling high-spirited crowds to the capital's iconic Maidan Square, where residents wave Ukrainian banners and flags. But the celebration comes after Russia's defense ministry says it had completed the withdrawal of troops from the western bank of the Dnipro River in Ukraine's southern Kherson region. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky hailed what he described as a historic day after withdrawal from the only regional capital taken since the war began, while the United States says Ukraine achieved an extraordinary victory. But the Ukrainian president struck a note of caution, underscoring that the city had not yet been completely cleared of the enemy's presence. Meanwhile, the United States President Joe Biden has thanked Cambodia's Prime Minister and chair of the Asian Regional Bloc for his critical remarks about the war in Ukraine and said he was looking forward to democracy returning to the army-ruled Myanmar. Biden made the remarks ahead of a meeting with Hun Sen, Cambodia's long-serving leader and this year's head of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Bloc, which has been leading efforts to start a peace process in Myanmar. And the main news again. The chairman of the Big Tent and professor of political economy, Pate Tomi, today called for the disqualification of presidential candidates who failed to take part in debates ahead of the 2023 elections. Professor Tomi said the debate provided an opportunity to assess the plans and capacities of candidates before the election. Also today, gunmen attacked a military checkpoint in a hometown of Anambra State Governor Chukwuma Soludo. 5 of the attackers and 2 soldiers were reportedly killed during exchange of gunfire. And the Nigerian Navy today recovered the vessel suspected of being engaged in illegal crude export, just as it set ablaze boat laden with drums of premium motor spirit in Cross River State. It explains that the action was in accordance with the standard procedure of the force. And that's the news at 10 for tonight.